Welcome to Scale Up Conference, everybody. Can we get a clap? This is a very special moment for me and a lot of people in the room. This is the first time we're doing an in-person event, I think in about 3 years after COVID. So very excited to see all of you guys in person, in the flesh, here together tonight. That's really, I think it's a landmark event that we're really excited about. So from my side, from the sponsors, from all of the different partners of the event, welcome to Scale Up Conference here tonight. We've got a really cool packed lineup for you guys of unbelievable founders, brilliant investors, and awesome professionals who help companies scale. So I think maybe just one step back on founders events and why it's important to bring people together. Just the process of building a private company that can grow and scale is a complex process. It's a difficult journey to choose as a career path. To be involved in leadership of an organization that goes through those phases, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, etc. It's challenging, it's hard. I don't think there's a lot of things you can choose to do with your life that would be more difficult than that. But it's amazing to connect with other people who are on that journey. And I think that's why we're here tonight. There's about 140 people that signed up for tonight's event, and they employ more than 5,000 people between them collectively. And their joint turnover is into the billions of billions, which is super, super exciting to just think about the kind of people who are here in the room tonight. All of them are at some stage of that journey of growing and building an exciting company that can ultimately create great value and make a dent in the universe, whatever that means for them. So just in terms of Scale Up Conference itself, so this is part of our event series, and this is, really the event is focused on how do you exponentially create growth in a company continuously and seamlessly over and over again to create a meaningful business. So we're going to be talking about the people tactics that make it possible to grow a great team. We're going to be talking about the leadership elements that are required to scale up an organization. We're going to talk about execution and operational infrastructure that's needed to be able to do that. We're going to talk about finance and cash flow and fundraising and the things that enable growth in an organization like that. And we're going to talk about strategy. All of those things that really enable the growth of that company. We are in super good hands tonight. You guys would have seen a short intro of the speakers. Myself and Dustin will introduce them as they come up. But yeah, I think from my side, just really stoked to have all of you guys here. So maybe give yourselves a clap for making it out of the house. Out from behind that computer screen behind which so many of us have been sitting for so long this last while. I think just before we get going, just the practicalities. Maybe if we can have the speakers towards the front, then it's just easy to find you guys. You don't have to jump up right now. But if you're speaking, maybe the front rows would be great, just so we can find you when it's your turn. Bathrooms, I believe, are up there. You guys all found the bars on that side, so we don't have to introduce that. But what we do just want to introduce is just the partners to tonight's event. It's been done in a collaboration between 3 firms. I'll leave this man to do the introduction of his one, perhaps. But Benchmark have been such great partners to us as OCFO throughout our entrepreneurial journey, and they've been a key cornerstone partner of this event tonight. We've put our networks together with them as well as with Carl's team from Sirdar. You guys will hear from Carl just now. He's our very first keynote speaker, and I'm so stoked to hear what he has to say for us tonight. So these 3 organizations that help founders scale and exit have joined forces and networks for tonight. And then we definitely can't forget this corner is dedicated to the Zoho team. Marika, you're on that team now. Say hi. We could not have made tonight possible if it wasn't for our sponsors, Zoho, who's come on board as just a cornerstone sponsor for tonight, making all of this possible for all of us, which is really, really cool. So thank you very much, guys. Give all of them a clap, please. The biggest anticlimax is if you're talking to 140 people on a computer screen in an online conference and you're waiting for that clap moment and there's just nothing. That's terrible. Guys, that is me from us OCFO side. I'm stoked to be here. Thank you very much to all of you guys for making it. Lucille, where's Lucille? Okay, there's Lucille in here at the moment. At the back. There she is. Lucille, will you stand up? Lucille, from our end, I just have to say, you saved my life. You and the teams that have worked on this on the back end, thank you very much. It looks stunning. We're so stoked. I'm going to hand over to this man. It's just from your side, do the opener. Us OCFO's team, thanks for being here, guys. We're so stoked to be here.
Thanks, Lo. What he said. You took it all. What I would like to say is to Cape Town, thanks for coming out in the rain. Yeah, I'm not a Cape Town fella. I'm originally from Durban. And my experience with Cape Town is when it starts raining, people change their minds a little bit as to whether to come to an event or not. So you'll notice that the wine has just all of a sudden become free. We needed to do something. There are a few gangs here that are hosting it. OCFO, ourselves at Benchmark and Sirdar as well. To differentiate between us, I don't quite know how to do that. I wanted to say that we would be the best dressed. But then I saw Sirdar rock up in ties. They've never done that before. So anyway, that's normally our differentiating factor. But look, we would like you to have fun today. I know most people say that, but we genuinely want you to move in if you can. After the break, it's awkward to do it now because then it means you have to stand up and people look at you. So don't worry about that. But as you come back in, let's squash up a little bit. If you are an outlier, definitely going to be asking questions of you. That's how it goes. Scaling, scaling's a difficult one. It's a difficult concept. And at Benchmark, we are faced with this all the time. Our clients come to us and they're looking for growth partners in order to scale. So today we will be unpacking that a little bit. Our speakers have done this before. They will be telling you their stories, and from their stories, I hope you can get some valuable experience from that. Okay. Do you mind if I just get going? All right. So to our first speaker, Mr. Carl Bates from Sirdar, was from Sirdar. So let me start by saying that we were fortunate enough to be involved in Carl's transaction. He founded the business and scaled it to a point where he was able to sell it without any significant profit warranties or the like. So a really neat and good transaction for Carl. He has off to pursue a political career. That's not a story we hear very often. That's one definitely for the book. The only fault is that he's a Kiwi. So we are one all in the series, so it's close. No rugby jokes. But Carl, over to you.
Thanks very much and good evening everyone. No rugby jokes is a bit of a push really. Of course I have to say as a Kiwi that you've got New Zealand out front again this evening.
Only for 15 minutes.
So look, it's a real honour and privilege to be speaking to you all this evening, talking about scaling up and the journey of scaling up and ultimately the journey of exiting and being able to successfully exit, because I suppose as entrepreneurs ultimately there's a point in the journey where we want that to happen, and I'm going to talk a little bit about being able to make that decision consciously as opposed to having it pushed on me or enforced on me or something like that, which if you know my story and some of you have heard me speak before in our family and some of what the journey for our family has been, that's happened. And so this evening I want to share with you some insights that hopefully support you on your journey of achieving something that we've been able to achieve in Sirdar. And so I want to just kick off very quickly by giving you a sense of what is it that we built. So Sirdar is the leading educator, guide and appointer of high performance boards here on the African continent. We've built the largest professional services firm in this space, in the boardroom space. We own the boardroom here on the African continent. And the name Sirdar is the name given to the lead Sherpa on a mountain expedition. So rather see a mountain of difficulty, the Sirdar sees a clear path of opportunity. And so through that journey of building, as I said, a high performance board focused professional services firm, we work with businesses, or ultimately through the boardroom, guiding boards and growing business. We've been able to work with hundreds of boards across the continent, even more businesses. Some of the businesses we've worked with haven't been directly in the boardroom, had huge impact in the space, a 16-year legacy. I was very lucky in that I got to start this business as a fairly young guy. I think when I first started, I was still wearing my dad's tweed jackets, but that's a whole nother story for another day. And we've been able to see the impact of the work we do through that one number on the screen as an entrepreneur. One, when you're talking about great numbers that you've got, is probably not one that you sort of want on the screen. But that one in terms of the African board survey around high performance boards for private and family businesses, if you haven't read it, if you haven't seen it, is something that you should engage with. And you should engage with it because it shows the numbers when it comes to this concept of a boardroom and how that directly connects with profitability and performance in private and family business. And that's really key in the context of today, right? We're not talking about listed companies or government organisations or non-profit. We're talking about the role of boards and the success of boards in private and family companies. And a couple of the numbers that are interesting from the last couple of years survey, and why I say last couple of years, is each year it's consistently shown us the direct correlation between the diversity of boardrooms and the profitability of business, the role of businesses that have, or the success of businesses that have independent directors versus those that don't. And so, as I say, if you haven't seen that survey, it is well worth downloading and having a read of. As you saw, we've worked around the world. We've got a core focus here on the African continent. I am a Kiwi, so we have a business partner in New Zealand, a large organisation in New Zealand that we licensed to deliver our services in New Zealand, and then we have business in Australia as well. Pre-COVID, used to do a lot of travel. All of those dots come from actually having been somewhere, myself or one of the team, as opposed to zooming in to speak in Montreal or something like that. This is in the days we used to do the travel. But COVID really did something interesting for me. It made me step back and go, what's my answer to that question, when's enough enough? And I'm really lucky and blessed in that I've had the opportunity to be involved in a number of businesses within the professional services space that we work with within Sirdar and within some of the other businesses that are connected to Sirdar. And we went back to New Zealand during COVID to a family wedding. Now, pre-COVID, I used to do that trip about 4 or 5 times a year. Back and forward, it's a decently long way, but it's about the only time that I didn't have, the team bugging me. Jenny, Lynn, Tim. They always knew when I landed because you'd turn the laptop on and it would just go ding, 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 ding with a whole lot of work. But, I love those trips. And landed in New Zealand, went over with Candice, my wife, and our son Angus. He was about 18 months, might have been 2 when we went over. And while I was there, I went, it's time. It's time to step out of business and step into politics, which is something that I've always been interested in doing, and I could talk quite a bit about why I think now's the time for people who have the sort of experience we have in this room, people who have made money, know how to create an actual job, know how to be efficient in an organisation and use money to actually get an outcome, and why people like us are needed in government. And a lot of people have said to me, as I've said, that I'm stepping into politics. Carl, why are you doing this? Like, you're an entrepreneur, you're great at what you've done, you've been successful. And I suppose my answer to that question is, well, if everyone like me took that view, then we end up with what we end up in government, right? And that's not a comment on any particular place in the world. You can take from it what you may, other than the fact that I clearly think the wrong people are in power in my country. And so I said to Candice, Candice, it's time. It's time for us to stay. And Candice knew that this was coming. She is South African. We did on Saturday night have one of us wanting to go home and one of us wanting to go out and have a bit of a party. But she always knew that when we got married, this was going to happen. And Candice said, Carl, there's one condition. And I thought this was quite interesting. Candice could have had a lot of conditions, I suppose, around me saying it's time to pack up our house over Zoom. So if you've heard a lot about COVID and the use of Zoom, we used Zoom to pack up our house. We had a friend walking around the house with the Zoom camera on during COVID. Big ups to Candice for making that happen. But she said her one condition was that we sold our business to someone who would ensure we continue to have the impact on the African continent that we've had. And so I started a journey working with the guys from Benchmark and our team within Sirdar to go on the journey of selling and exiting our business. And it's a really great honour and privilege that the guys from MPI and Israel's here this evening as my new boss for a week or two more, I suppose, who have come on board and bought the majority shareholding of Sirdar and enabled me to exit, as Graham said, without profit warranties and without that sort of ongoing tail. And I think that speaks to the quality and the success that the Sirdar business has had. And I'm going to share a little bit with you about why I think that is the case. So I'm going to share that with you, but I want to give you one last sort of reference point for the scaling conversation and my experience in the scaling conversation before I do that. Because there are a lot of milestones on the journey of scaling. And scaling is different for different people. So often we talk about this, for example, idea of a family business. And I love when someone says to me, oh no, but we're a family business. As though being a family business means exactly the same thing to every family business in every country on the planet. My family operates very differently, I'm sure, to yours. Yet we sort of talk about family businesses as being all the same thing, and clearly they're not. In the same vein, scaling is different. Depending on the type of business you are and where you're at in the journey, your scaling journey will be different. And I've had the honour and the privilege of scaling or being involved in scaling and exiting a number of businesses. Obviously, the Sirdar story that we've just been sharing with you. Some of you might know this brand, Power Fashion. Power Fashion sold to Mr. Price during COVID in 2020. It's public knowledge, so I'm not sharing any secrets, for about 1.7 billion rand. I was the chairman of Power from about 2015 to 2020. We grew it from 50 stores across South Africa and all of the little places that you wouldn't buy from. So, if anyone in this room knows the brand Power Fashion, it probably means you've been a true entrepreneur, where you've had to buy from the places in South Africa that things don't cost much, because this is one of those brands. We grew it from 50 to 170 stores across South Africa and then sold out to Mr. Price. And that was, Mr. Price. And that was an example of an organisation I was involved in their scaling as the independent chair of the board. And then if I go back 20 odd years, I was involved in setting up an organisation in New Zealand called UN Youth. It's the United Nations Youth Association for Aotearoa New Zealand. And I was the second president of the United Nations Youth Association, a non-profit. But my involvement in setting them up to scale is 25 years later. They still use their events as the driver of that organisation from a financial perspective, and it enables that organisation to do massive work. I've worked with tens of thousands of New Zealand students over the years, including some of the people I intend on kicking out of Parliament next year. Tens of thousands of Kiwi students over the years to understand New Zealand's role in the world. But that scale or scaling opportunity was based around understanding how even a non-profit has to have a financially viable model at its core. And so, here's 5 quick reflections on my scaling journey. The first is this idea that you've got to have a purpose that gets you through the darkness. This was a photo taken 12 years ago on the top of Kilimanjaro. And I remember climbing up that steep slope, for those of you who have climbed Kilimanjaro. Can I just get a show of hands? Anyone that's climbed Kilimanjaro? Awesome, cool. Okay. So, for those of you who haven't climbed Kilimanjaro, on the last night they say you have to climb the last part of Kilimanjaro through the night. So you leave about midnight, you climb through the pitch black, and they have this idea that you do this because you arrive on the summit in the morning, you watch, apparently it's because you get this romantic idea of watching the sunrise over the horizon, and that's sort of this reason for climbing through the night. And of course that it's not as hot as it is during the day, apparently. I think both of those ideas are flawed. I think the last thing you're interested in at 6:30 in the morning after climbing 8 hours through the pitch black is this romantic idea of the sun rising over the horizon. And secondly, it's cold at the top of that mountain all of the time. I think they make you do it through the pitch black, because if you had to do it during the day, you would see where you were going, you would turn around and go home. But getting up through that darkness, for me, it was I was climbing that mountain because my dad couldn't. And for those of you who know my story would know a little bit more about that. I'm not going to go into that right now because I don't have the time. But what is the reason, the purpose for your business? In Sirdar, our purpose is meaningful economic impact. We believe boardrooms have the power to change companies, and it's companies that change countries. So what is the reason behind your business? Because if you don't have a big enough one, you're not going to get there. The second is know what altitude you're at. In Sirdar, we know the single measure of success of our business is a concept called boardroom performance. If our clients' boards are not achieving in the boardroom, we're not going to achieve as an organisation. I think too often, as businesses, we allow the accountants in the room, and I'm allowed to say this because I'm a chartered accountant myself, we allow the accountants in our room to think that it's about revenue and profit. Yes, it is, and ultimately you have to grow the revenue and you have to make money. But you only do that if you understand what the measure of success for your business is. For ours, if our customers' boardrooms weren't performing, we weren't going to perform as an organisation. Thirdly, what are the keys to your climbing success? What is fundamental to the success of your organisation to the degree that you will die on the field to make sure those keys are looked after? I understood in our business that we had two key things to the success of our business. And basically, if you didn't like this, you were ejected from the organisation. Because I wasn't going to change the keys that I knew would enable us to be successful because you didn't like them or you had a different opinion on what drove our organisation. Because we built it understanding that we were a professional services firm built around a brand. And that brand wasn't my name. So if you don't get the concept of branding, you're not going to be successful in our organisation. If you don't buy into the fact that a brand is what's going to drive the success of our business, then you don't belong in our organisation. The second part of that is the idea of a methodology. We built the business on a methodology. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone's entitled to to their own opinion, obviously. But it's easy to come into a business and have an opinion, but not understand how that translates into rands and cents. In our business, we have a methodology that we use to drive the success of boardrooms. We've got data that proves that they work. Don't come in as a new person to our organisation and bring a new way to try and run a boardroom unless you've got the data that proves it. And so we built our business on a methodology, and we know that those two key things were drivers of success. Fourthly, summiting a mountain requires the correct or the right group of people on the climb. In our organisation, we understand the power of natural energy, the power of having the right people in the room sitting around the table, and how that energy creates flow. And yes, it's really easy to look at someone like me who has a directorship career and say, hey, you're going to be a great director for our business. I want you in our boardroom. Just because I'm a good director doesn't mean I'm the best director for your boardroom. And too often when we think about boardrooms, even in our own business, and that's a whole different conversation I'm not going to start on right now because that'd be a rant in itself. In your boardroom, you've got to make sure that you have this combination of natural energy, the combination of the right people sitting around the table, because we can correlate the makeup of a boardroom with the profitability of businesses. I've gone into boardrooms, one particular one in another country, so I'll share it with you, where I said to the owner, you need to fire the chairman, you need to fire the chief executive, you need to fire the CFO, or this business isn't going to make money. This is a company employing 1,500 odd people and with billions of rands of turnover. They did that, they started to make money because we understood the makeup required in that boardroom. Lastly, leverage knowledge and experience on the journey. You've got to have the right Sirdars in the journey. Power Fashion was successful, not just because it was a family business and not because of the product and all of the great stuff that made it up, but because they were prepared as a family to bring in an independent chair and an independent director to challenge them about what success meant in that business. And through doing that, ultimately, we were able to scale that business and see it sold. Who are you bringing in to your boardroom to challenge you on the journey to make sure you get to the summit. And so if you want to understand a little bit more about the thoughts that I have, and I call it the 4 dangers that kill businesses and destroy value, feel free to use that QR code and grab that ebook while we move on to the next speaker. I hope that was valuable. Have a wonderful evening, and thanks to all the organisers for this event.
Sure, guys. Inspiring first story. Carl, thank you very much for sharing that with us. Yeah, I'm keen to hear more about the back end of all of that. I'm sure there's a lot of interesting stories in there. Emma, can I get you up here, please? Guys, Emma is an entrepreneur and a marketer by profession. She has recently founded a company called Become Dapper that's built around the importance of founder and executive and key player brands within the company. In the world we live in today, where online is so vital, there's such a huge role to be played by the founders and the executives in a company in raising the awareness and the profile of the business. And that's basically what Emma specializes in. So I'm going to let her talk about that. We're very keen to hear. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Lo. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here, and Lo and I have had many conversations about brands, so it's great to be sharing some of that with you tonight. But I'm sure you're wondering what the connection is between a strong personal brand and scaling. So let's take the next 10 minutes to find out. An authentic and honest brand narrative is fundamental today. Otherwise, you will simply be edited out. So you may have noticed the word today in the slide. And my question is this another trend, another fad? And the answer is probably not. So back in 1997, Tom Peters wrote an article titled, "The Brand Called You." And he said, "We are CEOs of our own company, Me Incorporated. Starting today, you are a brand." And I think as entrepreneurs scaling businesses, this is particularly relevant, which we'll dive into in just a minute. But before we do that, think about what the first thing you do when you meet someone. You typically stalk them, you probably Google them, but how often do you take the time to Google yourself? So if you could all take out your phones and just pop your name into Google. And I'm curious to know, is this what you would want people to find? If you could just, I could have a show of hands. If there's something there you're like, oh, maybe not, maybe I'm going to go home and tweak that, or I'm going to figure out how to change those results. Everyone happy with their... Cool. So hopefully...
Speak to Emma.
So yeah, maybe there's some work to do there. But we often get asked, what is elevating your brand all about? And the answers often are updating my profile, expanding my network, posting content. And none of these answers are wrong, but they're just part of a much richer tapestry, which is why I really love this quote. Your personal brand is what others say about you when you are not in the room. I think it's a great reminder of why your brand's so much more than LinkedIn. It's how you show up, it's how you connect with people, especially those close to you. But back to why we're here tonight. What does this have to do with scaling? How is it relevant? And how can you make it work for you? So for us, it's about a ripple effect. What can happen in your business with a strong brand? You build credibility, you attract the right team, you attract the ideal customer, and hopefully it gives you access to investors and opens doors. In fact, 82% of investors believe that a brand is vital in guiding decisions. So ask yourself, what are you putting out there, and how is it being perceived? How many of you know whose brand this represents? Can I have an answer? So whether you are a Federer or an Nadal fan, I think we can all agree that Federer has just got one of those brands that has immediate recognition. He's got a quiet confidence, and he really just stands out from the crowd. Even for someone like me who doesn't really watch sport, I think there's a lot you can resonate with. So how did he scale this brand beyond tennis? Probably not like this. So back in his early career, he was accused of being racket smashing, bad attitude, ill-advised ponytail. And I think it's just such a reminder that what got you here won't get you there. So you really need to think about how can you be intentional with your brand and how can you curate it in a way that's authentic, but that still is aligned to where you want to be. Just got a little story here to share.
Can you please continue to play for 8-9 years? So have
Yes.
that promise?
Thank you,
What a surprise, huh? All the young people watching you playing finally against a worthy opponent. Here's your surprise.
Zizou.
Hi, I'm Mr. Federer.
Nice to see you. Roger. Hey, nice to see you. Welcome to Switzerland.
Thank you.
We have a promise, right? We gotta play. Are you ready? Let's do it.
I think, yeah, just an example of how your brand can be portrayed and followed through after all that time. So let's bring it home. Let's have a quick look at 3 Cape Town entrepreneurs I've had the privilege of working with on their brands and just kind of what stands out. So Helene Smuts from Credo Growth. She's got such a unique voice in the way she shares content. Lo, you all know. Lo, you have the most disciplined approach to content. I know, it's incredible. And Lavuya Rani is just one of those guys who puts energy and enthusiasm into absolutely everything he does. So what is the secret to their success? There's a few things they have in common I've touched on. Quality content, they're consistent, they add value. But I think what really stands out for me is they each do it in their own way. So in a world where you can be anything, be yourself. For us, it's just about being human. So, how do you build a personal brand? I've got a couple of quick tips. The first one is to show up. If that's online, how does your LinkedIn profile look? It's so much more than an online CV. There's so much you can do with it, but it's also how you show up in real life. Are you on time? Are you listening? Are you connecting with people when you have time with them? When it comes to building trust, I think a really simple one with LinkedIn is to ask for recommendations, but to also take the time to give them. So I think that two-way communication and trust is the modern day word of mouth. And we don't have time to delve into it today, but other ways you can do this are keynotes, collaborating, PR campaigns, and sharing case studies. And when it comes to connecting, again, let's keep it back to being in a room. So if you could just turn to one person sitting behind you or next to you haven't met, just a very quick intro, hi, my name is. I think that goes a long way when you're at a conference. So I think a few things that are just stand out for me, sort of takeaway points are, it's really not about who shouts the loudest. You don't need to sell, you can just share value. Take 10, don't procrastinate. If you spend more than 10 minutes creating a post, you're taking too long. And my favorite one is just wing it. Don't overthink it, the magic happens when you just get stuck in. And embrace the mindset that done is better than perfect. Nearly hit that backwards. So if there are 3 things you take from this, get a rock star bio. It's not easy to write for yourself, so get someone in to help. Build your street cred, and scale your reach. Just take the time to connect. So it's time to own your story. I hope you've got a few useful things out of this today. This is a glimpse of our story at Dapper, and it would be really great to connect with you all in the break. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Emma. That was insightful. I, for once, did follow instruction and did Google myself, to my horror. There's a particularly awkward photo that's so definitely going to be procuring your services and trying to work out how to get rid of that photo. Don't Google me. So I had some time to do that. The other person that popped up, thankfully, well, I've got an awkward name. It's 2 first names. My parents played a bit of a joke on me, and there are other Dustin Grahams that appears in the world. They too have personalities because their parents played jokes on them. So if you do Google me and it's the other one, I think they're good guys too. But anyway, over to our next speaker, Simone Musgrave. We have had the privilege as well of working with Simone in her journey of scaling and ultimately exiting. So she will be interviewed today, I think, is that right? By Simon Smith from Benchmark. And over to you. I look forward to hearing your story. Although I know it all too well, I'm sure they do. Thanks.
Easy one, not having to prepare.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. It's such a privilege. We're very fortunate at Benchmark specifically. We get the opportunity to really spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs and founders on a daily basis. So to Emma, to your slide, I think following on the brand discussion, for those of you who do not know Simone and her story, she'll share with us a bit more about it shortly. I'm sure most of you have consumed her brand, Musgrave, which we'll talk about a bit more tonight. And Simone really is what we like to refer to as a kind of a rock star when it comes to brands. So I think as a brief introduction to Simone, and she'll tell you a bit more about her journey, but Simone founded Musgrave back in 2015. She scaled the business by herself, which I'd like for her to share a bit more about that specific experience and journey with us. But scaled it significantly, as in double it year on year, and then obviously COVID hit, so we'll get into that as well. But we'd like to take this opportunity, Dustin calls it an interview, but more of a discussion around what Simone did to scale the business post-COVID, what she did prior to COVID, to learn a bit more about her journey, and then also tying into the topic of this discussion is around the strategic partnership. So we'll hear a lot tonight about the different ways of scaling your business, and the questions that come up is really, what do you need to scale your business? Do you need funding? Do you need skills? Do you need a strategic partnership? And that's where this focus will be, because Simone has taken a kind of a different approach to scaling her business. But I think maybe a good starting point would be for you just to share with us your story, how you started the brand. If there's someone that really understands the value of a brand and the value of a brand story, it really is Simone. So yeah, if you can share with us maybe just a bit of background, just to give a bit of context, that'll be great.
Sure. So I won't ask who climbed Kilimanjaro, but I will ask who hasn't drunk Musgrave Day. You don't have to put up your hand, but you should go and try it. So, yeah, 2015 is when I started Musgrave. I launched my original gin on World Gin Day in the middle of winter, which is people don't drink much gin in winter, especially in those days. And I was still duly employed at RCL Foods, having survived 3 takeovers in good old FMCG corporate. But I knew retrenchment was coming, so I said to my bosses, do you mind if I just do this on the side? And they were actually, shame, bless, let her do this. And it took them a little bit longer to retrench me than I thought. And so 18 months later, I had launched Musgrave Original and we had launched Musgrave Pink. And I was starting to moonlight quite a lot. And they didn't really notice, didn't seem to care, and thought it was a nice hobby. But by then I was sort of selling 5,000 bottles a month, and I always say, most entrepreneurs will say it's just luck and hard work, and I think that's very true of Musgrave. So it was luck because I hit the gin trend just at the right time, and I was saying earlier as I walked in, we won't see a trend like that in any liquor category again, I don't think. So it was super good luck that I noticed the trend and jumped on it. And then I worked really hard. And what helped me, and I certainly resonate with Emma around personal brand, is that it was so easy because it was my surname. And it was my story. And no one could really copy my story. They've copied Pink Gin and done it really badly, but it was my story and I really understood it, and it was me. It was a piece of me in every bottle and every brand and every part of the journey. And so it was quite easy to market. All I had to do was tell my story. We were the first Pink, and I think Musgrave disrupted categories. I'm quite rebellious, so that was in character, so that was quite easy. And so it just exploded, and I really did not expect that. So when they finally retrenched me, I was like, thank goodness. And I could take the 6 months retrenchment package and have a salary at least, and get on the journey. And then it really was what I didn't expect. I worked from home, I bottled things in the back garden of my house illegally, and I didn't have a liquor license for quite a long time because I didn't really need
Off the record, eh?
In fact, I was quite legal because my model was contract manufacturing, so other people made it, other people bottled it, and other people distributed it. And all I had to do was direct all of that. I actually didn't need a liquor license. Well, I kind of did, but no one could really pinpoint that. So the journey went on, and we found ourselves growing 650% month on month. And I can tell you that's not fun. My bottles come from France. I had to pay cash for them in the beginning. They take 6 weeks to get here. So when you sell out, you're properly stuffed without a bottle, and the bottles become my brand. Luckily, I didn't run out. I managed to juggle it and say no to a few people, and we sort of found our way. I remember when I launched minis, another disruption is that we thought it would be quite cute to have a little mini gin that you could sneak into festivals. And that was really the motivation. But then we found that, so if we made it look like perfume, which the Pink does look like, then no one would see it as booze, and then and it works. But no one would make it or bottle it for me, so I did it in the back, a room in my house. And I remember when we got to 20,000 bottles a day and 8 illegal Malawian women bottling this for me, that I was kind of in trouble. But then it was fine because I improved concepts. Retailers liked it, customers liked it, consumers were using it for all kinds of things, not just festivals, and someone decided to bottle for me. So I had a quite an unusual scaling up operation. I was also lucky in that I didn't really need much money to do this because I didn't have the distillery to hold the overhead cost of. I didn't have the trucks I needed to deliver. I didn't have much staff. I did pretty much everything with someone who helped me on accounts. I outsourced my CFO was outsourced. And so I really didn't need a lot of startup money, and I didn't need a lot to scale because I only sold what I could afford to buy in terms of bottles and liquid, and with with excise duties, as you'll know, you only pay when 90 days after you bottle. So I wasn't even taking that cost, the distillery was. So I kind of juggled and hustled the best that I know, and that's how we got to a certain point. And I think it was 2018 we had our biggest turnover. It was the biggest gin year, and I think we reached a sort of 30 million turnover. And I didn't even know how to make sense of that. I'm not a finance person. I'm actually just not even a gin person. I just like to have my own time and freedom not to be told what to do. And then I was suddenly like, how the hell are we going to carry on? So we got to a point where I needed more distribution. I needed more trucks on the road. I needed more salespeople on the ground. I needed a cheaper production. These little distilleries are cute, but they're really expensive. And so I found myself really just, what am I going to do to take this to the next level? And it's a volume game, liquor. It's a volume game, and the buyers in retail stores want a lot out of you. So I had about 10 people at this stage doing marketing mostly. We had some direct accounts, and we could manage some of the stuff, but we couldn't be in every store all across the country. I knew that the time had come to find a partner. Perfect timing, 2019, we started working together with Benchmark, and we had some great discussions with Distell, with all the big guys. It was exciting. And then, boom. Not only many of your businesses stopped operating in COVID, and you couldn't work, or maybe you could, or you could pivot. We became an illegal business. And I think for me it was the worst time of my life. It was the biggest stress of my life, that I wasn't just stopped from trading, I became an illegal business. So I couldn't put my product in my car and drive it around. If I went into my warehouse in Salt River, sort of warehouse raiding was quite a possibility. So I'd drive in, quickly close the door, hope that I wouldn't be attacked with machine guns and stolen, all my products stolen. And so I found myself having to sell in creative ways, but that was also stressful, because I used to have dreams about being arrested in my bed and hustled into a drug cave, or when we were allowed to go and exercise runs between 6 and 9, I think it was, or 7 and 9. I was walking up Chappies, I live in Hart Bay, and I heard someone say in a little group of women, and she also has brandy. And then I knew my WhatsApp number had gone viral. So I built my personal brand, Emma, in a different way. But so it was really the worst time. And I remember putting stuff in my boot and driving up to Cedarburg Lodge and taking them boost through roadblocks. And I took huge risks, but I didn't have a choice. And I also saw my opportunity to sell Musgrave or partner with anyone go down the tubes. Everything stopped. All the liquor businesses were trying to survive, and it was a complete mindfuck time. So I think Tian and Dustin were quite positive. Don't worry, we're still having discussions, there's still going to be people interested, but essentially no one really was. And I had to really start to think, what am I going to do next? And COVID came and went. I think we went through our last ban, and slowly some of the discussions started coming back. So I think that's sort of a very quick summary of 2015 to now. And I think we're 4 months into a partnership that we've signed.
Yeah, and I'm sure for those of you who've got some time afterwards, Simone has now summarized a very long journey in a very short period of time. Unfortunately, we've only got 15 minutes tonight, so if you guys catch her outside, I would encourage you to speak with her and just hear her full story. But what I want to get to, Simone, is this strategic partnership that you've entered in a couple of months ago. For those of you who don't know, I think there's been a couple articles around it. Simone has partnered up with Halewood, which is South Africa's fastest growing manufacturer and distributor of alcoholic as well as non-alcoholic drinks, a couple of months ago. So what I would like to understand, and perhaps you can share with the audience, is the different options that you had in terms of going for a partner to invest capital into the business versus potential taking an equity stake up front. What made you decide to keep the brand and then rather partner up by signing a kind of distribution and licensing agreement with the option to sell the brand down the line?
So yeah, coming out of COVID, we now sort of 60% less turnover, which is not that sexy, and no one knows what the future is either. What is this government going to do with liquor? When are we going to be screwed over again? What is the legislation that's coming? So there was a lot of nervousness to say, well, we're going to take on this brand. Geez, they've been knocked 60%. Are they going to come back? So I had to really say, you know, am I desperate, so stressed and desperate to get out of the liquor game, or am I going to take a little bit of a longer view? And I think the wise knowing, and I totally believe in the brand, and it is a strong brand, people know it, and I really believe that anyone owning the Musgrave in the future will benefit hugely from it. I had to make a decision to say I'm going to take a little bit of a longer stand. And so we decided to partner with Halewood. For the first 2 years, I am the marketing manager, essentially. Such fun getting it 1,000 Rand approved by your new boss. But, you know, I can live around the world, I can go anywhere now. No one's watching me, I have no staff, I have no warehouse, I have no trucks, and I have no excise duties to pay. But also I've partnered with a really strong operational team. So they are the fastest growing liquor business. They have, with Belgravia Gin, they've taken over the Gordon's share, which is phenomenal. A brand that's been around since, you know, that's the first gin I drank. We were all happy with Gordon's before this craft thing came along. And so, you know, if they can do that, they can do a lot more. And so I really like they were quite entrepreneurial as a spirited company. You know, they didn't seem very corporate, and operationally they were very good, which is everything I needed. I needed the operations. Marketing-wise, I'm definitely stronger, but what did I need? I needed distribution, manufacturing, salespeople on the ground, and all that gritty stuff that is really not my forte. And I can do it, but I don't have the people or the size. So the journey's a little bit longer. For 2 years I'm going to be marketing manager for Musgrave, and they will do all the operations. And then as the years go by, and hopefully after the 3, we're out completely. But that will assist me to bring that revenue back to where we were in 2019, and sell the business for what it should be sold for, rather than kind of just say, I'm actually worn down by COVID and I want out. And then I've lost everything that I've built. I've lost my child, essentially, my 3rd child, 2 other daughters who don't want anything to do with Musgrave. They helped me bootleg, and they've done. So my 3rd child, I have a choice to lose it, or I have a choice to partner strategically with everything that I don't have. Yes, I still control the brand. So for the first year, I definitely am still 100% brand owner. I get a royalty, and I get a salary, and I still don't even have to ask for leave. So I think I've won quite well, but of course it's a 3-year journey to see where we get to. And that obviously holds risk. But you know, I didn't seem to be scared of risk before, so hopefully this is the future.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Simon. I've just been notified we are out of time, unfortunately. It went really quickly, but thank you very much for sharing your story. I think maybe for Lo, for next 2 or 3 years, just keep Simon in mind, so hopefully she can share her exit story at one of your conferences. Then thank you very much, guys, for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tion and Simon. Funny, poignant, authentic, as always. And you said fuck. Someone had to. I'm glad you brought the ass there. Low pressure, Kunal, it's our next speaker. Yeah, you have to one up that. Good luck. But over to our next speaker. We meet a lot of parties with capital at the end of their name. ABC Capital, XYZ Capital. And their stories are sometimes quite similar. You know, what they're looking for, how they're going to potentially price an opportunity, the value they can add into an opportunity, etc. The fellow you're going to hear talk tonight, Kunal, is not that. They have family-based values that is genuine. You will hear from his story how they genuinely look at an opportunity for what it is, and they are great partners. And if you don't take my word for it, which you should, they are today in the news, and with a very, very significant deal that we were very lucky to be a part of as well. But I don't want to break that, because I did Google you as well, and I just wanted to see if it came up. But Kunal, up to you come. And over to you. Let's hear your story.
How's it, everyone? Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for that introduction. I also Googled myself, and I was also truly mortified by what the pictures I saw of myself. So, Emma, I'm going to find you after this, and we're going to sort this out. But yeah, I mean, I think beyond that, I must kind of just say up front, I have no fucks to give tonight. Put it that way. And also, I think the story that I wanted to talk about is really kind of a slightly different perspective, because in many ways I feel like, like just one of you guys, an audience member, a founder, an entrepreneur, not really just so much as an investor as well, because we wear many hats. My journey's been somewhat unusual in that I graduated university from the US. I eventually found my way back to South Africa, working as a management consultant, and then I was really kind of believed strongly about this idea that we could change the world as an entrepreneur. And I became the serial entrepreneur, launched 3 different businesses, failed twice, was stupid enough to try the 3rd time, and actually made a little bit of money, believe it or not. Sold the business. Unfortunately, I didn't know of Benchmark at the time. I had to do it myself. But it worked really well. And then eventually I joined my family business, a business that was 100 years old when I joined it. And I was the 4th generation to be the custodian of that family legacy. And it was an incredibly important, humbling moment when I got to walk in on my first day and see actually some of the people that I used to grow up with, working in that factory with, and their kids were now working there, and their dads worked there before them. So in our family, we felt incredibly blessed and proud of the fact that we had 3 generations of families who chose to work and spend their time professionally with us. And I think as business owners and founders yourselves, you think about building a culture that not only resonates for yourselves, but for the people that you employ. And so you spend nights and weekends awake thinking about your values and your culture and what defines your organization. And I will say that, frankly, I think all those sleepless nights, all the gray hairs, all the endless worrying that we have about our failings and what we could be better at is actually what makes us so special. And I mean, frankly, the fact that all of you guys are still here after COVID, after bootlegging, after doing all these crazy things. We've lived through a pandemic. I'm from Durban. We've lived through riots. We've lived through floods. We've lived through some insane things, and yet we are still here fighting, building businesses, and actually thinking about how to scale. I mean, it's unbelievable that we're just alive, let alone kind of scaling. So please, I mean, I think just give yourselves a round of applause for kind of working I think as South Africans, right, and no disrespect to the New Zealanders, but I think we have this incredible obligation as well, right, to build and create, because by building and creating, we create so much more than just for ourselves. We create for so many others, and it's really, really so special. But to do that is really, really difficult. Simon, I listened to you and you talk about kind of how fortunate you were in your journey of not needing access to so much capital. But I mean, maybe I have a question that I wanted to ask all of you today is, As you all have started your journeys and continue on your journey, how many of you have thought about raising capital in the past? Just a show of hands would be great. Okay, so nearly half of you. And I mean, out of you guys who've thought about it, how many of you have actually gone out and raised capital so far? Or at least tried to raise capital so far? Oh, okay, nice. All right, so any been successful with that capital raising process? Amazing. And how many of you had great experiences with kind of that capital raise process? Not so many hands. Okay experiences with the capital raising process? Yeah, oh, then the rest must be really bad, but okay, we won't ask you to put your hands up. But I think that whole, I mean, just what we're seeing there, right, is so powerful because capital raising is really, really difficult. I was on your side of the fence for a long time. I had to pitch after pitch after pitch, trying to raise money because I didn't want to ask my dad for money. I was too proud to do that. And frankly, I'm actually glad I didn't. I could never have him as my boss. Although I do have him now as my boss. So. But you know, I think what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is I've had this privilege of sitting both on this kind of the side of capital raising, and today I sit on the other side of where entrepreneurs and really owner-managers mostly is where we kind of spend most of our time, are sitting in front of us and talking to us about why they're looking for a partner. And I really mean looking for a partner because for somebody who's looking for capital, going to look for an investor is probably the worst thing to do, right? Because our capital's expensive, right? We have really lofty ambitions about the kind of returns we want to make, and so you could probably find a lot cheaper money out there. But if you're looking for a real partner, that's a different kind of kettle of fish. And I think what I've learned from meeting hundreds and hundreds of really amazing entrepreneurs is that there's some kind of almost universal truths that every business, no matter how unique, no matter how much of a snowflake you are and your business is, if you get like 5 things right, I think you've laid the platform that your business is eminently investable. And I really wanted to talk about some of those 5 things for a few minutes with all of you today. So, you know, the crazy thing is, it all started with each of you, right? Your businesses started with you, a vision in the shower or in the bedroom or wherever. Like, you had this moment and you were like, fuck this, I'm gonna quit my job. I'm certainly moving on to fuck, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm gonna go and do this, I'm gonna go start like something amazing. And that is so cool, right? But I think when you go and sit in front of an investor, Emma, you talked about it earlier, like, be your authentic self, right? You know, nobody wants to invest in some cookie cutter person. I mean, we all see Elon Musk on Twitter and we think, first I think all of us are like, wow, this guy's amazing, he's changing the world. And I think there's more and more of us who think, well, there's a couple of screws loose there. But be that as it may, be the screws loose or whatever, the man wants to change the world and make us a multi-planetary species, be you. And I think that's so important because you are the reason an investor is actually sitting at that table in the first place. And I think before you go there, though, you need to really talk about what makes you special. Unpack that, unpack what makes your business special, what's your vision, how you grow this, and be really clear about that. Because I think without that, the conversation dies almost immediately. And then kind of following that, it's this whole idea of what's your vision for this business and what are your values? You know, this whole idea of values is, I think, to me, beyond you as the kind of the visionaries, the creators, etc. Your values are the most important thing afterwards, right? It's what makes your business unique. It's that secret sauce of what do you do differently? How do you kind of do something that your competitors just unwilling to get out of bed and do every single day? So to me, that vision and values thing is be really, really clear about it, because I think when you sit in front of an investor, aligning on those two issues is so fundamental, because what we see time and time again is if you don't take the time before you do a deal to really deeply get to know that person who runs that business, you'll eventually find yourself being misaligned on the vision, on the values. And when I talk about vision, is do you expect dividends, or do you want to exit in 3 years, or what do you actually want? And does that person who's investing in your business believe in that strategy and believe in that process that you're going through? And then I think it's about the team, right? You guys are amazing, and I think your job in this, as you scale, is build a team that's equally amazing. People want to invest into great teams. You can't do everything, and I think your ability to let go and to not micromanage as much as we all want to is so important, and it's really fundamental to growing here. And then it's the market, right? I talk about kind of this fourth thing is about understand where in the life cycle of your market are you? Are you in the newspaper industry? Because you can't even give away newspapers for free anymore. Or are you in like electric vehicles, which I think is high growth? Or are you somewhere in the middle where growth is maybe plateauing? But I think the really important thing here is figuring out where you are, how did you grow, and the important thing is in your market, if it's still growing, it's easy to grow when the whole market's rising, right? A rising tide lifts all ships. But then you get kind of the alternative strategy is saying, can I eat my competitor's lunch? But I can do it by kind of cutting price and just destroying my margin, or if I can somehow figure out a way that I'm in a rising market and at the same time eat my competitor's lunch without cutting my margin, that's an incredibly powerful story to kind of marry together. So, think extensively about that. Understand that market, understand how you compete, how you differentiate in that market. To me, that's fundamental. And then I'd say kind of the superpower for every single business is know your numbers. Use information. Information truly is a superpower. It gives you an ability, it's your GPS. It tells you where you've been and where you're going to. It helps you make better decisions, helps you course correct when you do make decisions. We believe strongly in having great finance people, great finance teams, whether they're internal or external. But use information in your manufacturing process, in your sales process, in every single facet of your business. Because I think, often we don't spend enough time on investing into the people and the systems that give us that information. Because frankly, we live in a knowledge economy today. And having it in Excel or having it in your head is just not good enough anymore. Frankly, I know I'm out of time, but those 5 things are kind of, to me, if you get those 5 things right, you've got an incredibly investable business to go back on. And those are the things that we look at. And frankly, if you got those 5 things right, please come and talk to me. We'd love to come and chat and get to know you guys more. So thank you so much for listening and your time. And I'm incredibly grateful to be here. And I'm so looking forward to hearing the rest of the speakers today. So enjoy.
Can I get my panel on the stage, please? I just thought maybe I'll ask you guys to just do a very quick introduction of yourselves, and then we can get into that. Uwais, we'll start on your end, maybe.
Hi, everyone. I'm Uwais Asmal, the head of advisory services at OCFO. So I manage the CFOs in our advisory team, and we get to do all the strategic fun stuff when we get to help you grow your business. That's me.
Google Uwais.
Hi everyone, my name is Ayanda Vabazam Vandaba. I work with OCFO as well as wear a couple of other hats. I'm the director and founder of Gwandiso Consulting.
Hi everyone, I'm Leon Hofman. I'm the technical tax and accounting manager at OCFO, which sounds very technical and boring. I'm also a mother of 3 boys, and I used to be an interior decorator, so finance is not always boring.
Very interesting. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here and sharing some of your wisdom with us. So we're here to talk about scaling up. So when a company scales, revenue grows, operations grow, headcount naturally kind of grows. What happens in finance when a company grows very fast? Ayanda, I'm going to start with you, please.
I think when a company grows extremely quickly and it is not prepared to handle the capacity of the growth, finances will, or the finance function will definitely stall. It will definitely fall behind. Entrepreneurs will focus on what they want to do and they will pick their struggle, and it definitely will not be the finance function.
Boys, can you add something to that?
I can only add on top of that. So, I mean, what do most founders do is they manage their business from their bank account. And you can do that when you're small, but once you start getting bigger and you need to start managing payments, that becomes the first thing that trips you up. You don't realize you have something to pay next week, something else, and another tax payment to pay the following month, and a bigger. So that's generally what happens, and then all of a sudden you're out of cash, and that can be a big problem.
Thanks for that. So I think part of scaling up is just finding like recipes, templates, processes that can be built and duplicated and learned from where they have been successful. So I see our slides up a little bit early, but I wanted to ask you guys just in terms of the foundational principles of a good finance engine. Leon, maybe I'm going to ask you about the first 3-4 of these baseline pillars. How would you go about explaining that as the heart of a good finance function?
Sure, thanks, Lau. First one up here is accurate basic financial information. Exactly the last thing that a whole group of entrepreneurs want to think of. I think it's been mentioned over and over tonight. Your journey is absolutely unique. You think of, you have the vision, the project, you know where you want to go, but it's absolutely impossible to get there if you don't have accurate financial information. You can't make accurate decisions if you don't know what numbers you're looking at. You don't know, you can't get access to capital if you don't have the financial information. It needs to be accurate. That's why you get the finance term in. And also it just forms the very first platform and basis on which to scale. And then if we move on to compliance and assurance, which is probably swear words in most people's minds, once you have your numbers in place, you have your trial balances, you have your financial statements, you obviously need to think of I'll try again. Then you get to SARS and Companies Act compliance and all of those very, very interesting things that you need to be compliant with. And once again, you cannot be compliant with SARS, you cannot submit your tax returns if you don't have accurate financial information. Which brings us to our next step, SOPs. Also one of those things that people often think, why do we actually need to have SOPs? The thing is just we are all human, we're creatures of habit. If you're not going to have a very good SOP in place, people will start forming their own SOPs. And if you have 5 different employees and everyone has their own SOPs, then it's going to be a dog show at your finance function. Once you have your accurate basic financial information, you've got your compliance in check, and you have SOPs, we can start thinking about automation. Because now you have your teams, they're all on the same page, they know what to do, they have accurate information, and now you can start thinking of how can I actually automate things? Why? Yes, we are living in a world of automation where AI is real, and when you go onto a website, you have chatbots talking to you, but also you can make, you can really make some processes so much more efficient and so much faster, and then you can also enable and empower your teams to focus on the end vision and then look away from all the finance functions when you put the correct automations in place.
Thanks for that, Leon. Weiss, what can you add about the top part of this pyramid here?
Well, if we look at 5, 6, and 7, it's what I like to call it is the sexy side of accounting. They use the sexy side of accounting for the accountants in the room. But once you build the base that Leon talked about, having that advanced financial information allows you to make decisions. Getting your financials out is not about keeping SARS happy. Yes, you need to keep SARS happy, but you need to use, if you don't have that information, you can't make informed decisions. So you need to have this advanced financial information. That's where you get KPIs from. That's where you'll be able to start tracking, okay, this is what I was doing last year. This was my KPI I was doing last year. What's it doing this year? How can I compare? How can I grow? And you can only do that if you've got that advanced financial information. Profit and cash maximization. that's where we start figuring out how can we make more cash or how can we improve the profitability. There's a couple of tools that we can use. I know the people like to talk about the power of one. If you increase your sales by 1%, if you reduce your cost by 1%, what does it do to the bottom line? And your accountant can do that exercise for you, so you can see, okay, a small tweak to the selling price can have this massive impact on my profits at the end of the day. If I just try a few different things, but you won't know until you actually test it out and you try and maximize when can you get the higher profit or the better cash. And then strategic direction is more, where do you want to grow from a business in the long term? Because your long term indicate, as a finance team, you have to build your finances so that you can get your strategic long term. And at OCFO, we've got this the saying of we've got a BAG, a 15-year BAG. We want to serve 10,000 entrepreneurs, and we want to grow 1,000 professionals. And that's our strategic direction. So everything else falls into that. And if you don't have that, you start moving, you start seeing, every time you see a shiny thing, you say, oh, let's go this way, or let's go that way. But if you've got a focus and a strategic direction that you're working to, then your business will succeed.
Thanks for that, Uwais. When you said cash, that word was a bit loaded. I want to talk about cash. Why is it that when a company grows, you think more revenue, more clients, why does the process of growth actually suck cash as one of the fundamental laws of entrepreneurship? Dion, can I pass it to you?
Sure, thanks, Lo. I think we've also had some of the answers to that question tonight. Like, as your company grows, you need to meet the demand with your supply. So if you have to import gin bottles from France, it's cash actually to stock up on inventory if you're selling goods. Yes, your business is growing, it's scaling, you're getting the revenue, but as you are scaling and the revenue comes in, you also need to put the capital structures in place. You need to rent a warehouse, you need to employ staff, you need to market your brand, and all of that is cash intensive. And if you don't plan well for that, then you're going to think, oh yes, my business is scaling, my business is growing, there's revenue coming in, but obviously you need to be smart about and also realize that there's a lot of expenditure going into the business as well, especially with things you may need to make some huge credit sales up front, and then you have debtors tied up in your debtors book with no cash. So yeah, that's just a few things that I can touch on that to answer your question now.
Well, I was going to pass it back to you in terms of like what can a founder team or a management team then actually do in terms of managing cash? Best tip or tool or something you would deploy?
Timing of cash is obviously an important thing, and agreeing with your customers when they pay you. Like for example, you have big corporates, let's take retailers that we know, they only pay their suppliers after 60 days. When you buy from the retailer, you give them the money up front. They haven't paid the stock yet. So they've already got the cash. They're using the cash before they've even paid for the stock. So it's just about, because they're big, they get to dictate when am I going to pay you. Okay, as a small business, you might not be able to do that, but you can negotiate with your supplier in terms of time, because you might have the best profit, but your cash is only coming 90 days afterwards. You still have to pay your employees to deliver the service. So agreeing and the timing of and knowing, because some people don't even know when the cash flow is going to come. They hope the customer is going to pay at a certain time. You need to know when did you agree the timing with your customer, and if you don't, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble.
Thanks, Uwais. And I think fundraising is also obviously a fundamental part of the finance conversation when it comes to a rapidly scaling organization. So it's almost a natural part of taking in some kind of capital from somewhere when you grow a business. So it will either be in the form of an equity investor who takes shares in your company, or a debt provider who you actually have to repay plus interest. So I just want to talk about those two things as the different routes to access significant growth capital. When we think about just loan finance, are you under upsides, downsides of borrowing money for growth?
Sure, Lo. So with debt, I think the nice thing there is that there's a finite timeline, and you're not locked in infinitely. The downside is definitely it drains from your resources and your ability to scale your business, because there are repayments that need to be made. There is interest that needs to go to your creditor. So those are important considerations, and if your balance sheet can handle it, definitely, but that's an assessment that you have to make.
And you must make pretty sure that you're profitable enough then to be able to cover that as well in that process, right? Uwais, and then the other option is equity providers. We heard from a really great equity partner just now, Kunal. What do you say are the advantages and disadvantages of taking in an investor that buys equity in the company?
So I guess the advantages are that you don't have an interest charge every year if you're taking out debt. But you still have to, I mean, the investor's also there to make a return. The investor's not giving you the cash out of the goodness of their heart. So you need to deliver. But the benefits are that you can have a bad year, you can have a difficult year and get through it. The type of capital is also very important. So if you've got, it's a bad word, but dumb money is not the right word, but if you, for example, you have somebody who can help grow the business. They mentioned, the speaker with Sirdar mentioned that choosing the person that invests in your company is very important because that's your long-term partner. I've even had situations where there were businesses that they tried to fix something, they tried to grow, and we just couldn't grow. We couldn't get into it was a small town, and they couldn't get into the municipal manager's offices, as an example. Sold some capital to people who had better relationships, and all of a sudden, all those doors open. So that's also a positive if you can get an investor who's able to open doors for you that you can't open yourself.
Thanks, Uwais. Awesome, appreciate that. Guys, we are running out of time. I know everyone wants to drink, so I'm just going to ask for final thoughts. One tip, maybe Ayanda, you would give to a room full of scale-up founders. What would that be?
Two main things. The first would be start as you mean to continue. Have your story, know your story up front, and don't change. Don't sway with the wind. Then the second thing is don't betray the potential of your business. And by that I mean don't let things go undone. Don't let your finance function fall apart. Don't be found wanting by a potential funder. Don't betray the potential of your business. That's all.
Sure. Leon, do you have something to top that with?
I won't say top that, but I do want to say, start with the end in mind. No one starts a business and think, yo, I'm going to have great, accurate financial records and I'm going to be compliant with SARS. But start with a vision in mind, but first things first, you need these to get to the end. So, yeah.
Appreciate it. Guys, please give my panel a great round of applause. Thanks. Yeah. We're heading into a quick break. You want to go?
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone to our chartered accountants with personality, the sensey side of accounting. But seriously, on that note, when we were talking about capital structures, there's one part that's not that sexy. So a little bit of boring stuff before we go to a break. Our experience is that entrepreneurs are very well versed in interpreting their profit and loss. Right, their income statement, what their revenue is down to their profit. Less so when it comes to their balance sheets. So please, if there's one thing that I would implore of you to talk to OCFO about is have a look at your capital structures within your balance sheet. Okay, particularly post-COVID, we are certainly seeing a lot of long-term related money financing short-term stuff. Okay, and this is a demon that comes back to bite you a little bit later on. Difficult one to see off the bat, but they can definitely do that for you. You better shout out my business at some point. All right, one thing we didn't talk around, Carl from Sirdar, his 2 books are on sale at the back, or he's giving them away, one of the 2. I don't know if I've thrown you under the bus here. Sorry, Carl. I'll let myself, genuinely, I don't know. But I think, well, now you're giving them away. They are not about climbing Kilimanjaro. They are more useful than that. And he has promised to sign them as well. He is soon to be running New Zealand and later the world. So get your copy. Hot off the press. We are off to a 20-minute break. There's food and drinks, lots of empty wine glasses littering the floor here. So off you go get lubed up. I'm keeping with the theme. And we'll see you back here in 20 minutes.
I hope everyone managed to grab a bite and grab a drink. We're here for the second part of the night. Good to see so many people sticking it out on the cold winter's night here in Cape Town. Mr. Van Eeren, can I ask you to join me on the stage, please? Guys, Martin is a leadership and executive coach that's been invaluable to our process and some of our clients' processes over the years. He's brilliant at building high-performing teams and thinking about, like, you know, attracting and keeping and working with the right people in your team. So we've asked Martin to just talk to all of us tonight about, like, just the art of teaming. Well coined.
I don't know if the word got out that I'm next. I see we lost a couple of people, but I won't take it personal. Speaking about teaming and speaking about creating and managing a high-performance team is a topic that needs more than 10 minutes, and it's a process that you need to take on very deliberately. It's not something that there's this saying that says leaders get the teams they deserve, and that's a big thing to unpack here. And so what I want to give you today is just handles. It's basically just a guide or a steer for what you can try and achieve within your teams. We've heard today that you need to focus on values, you need to focus on the culture, and then also having a great team is an amazing asset for any team. Am I in charge of this? This thing? Cool. I have the power. So I'm going to talk about something that we call, these are the Springboks, for those who don't know. And I actually want to start about thinking about a time or a team that you felt, geesh, this is the best team I've ever been involved with. And just the feeling, the emotions, what the team did, the actions that the team did, the way that they performed. Just think about the words that come up for you when you think about what's the greatest team that you've ever been involved with. Maybe it's your grade 1 soccer team. Maybe it's the first rugby team when you were at varsity. Maybe it's your Sunday paddle team. You can decide, because teams are teams, and for any team the principle stays the same. So just think about it. What's the words? Maybe I'm not going to take a mic and put it underneath to give me an answer, but just maybe shout out some of the things that you think, what comes up for you when you think about what made the best team that you've ever been involved with. Brotherhood. Cool. Brotherhood, a sense of belonging. Trust. Very, very important. Trust. Anything else? Commitment, passion. So we see there's a lot of words that we use to describe a team. If you've watched the documentary Chasing the Sun, there's certain things that just stood out for me in developing a team, and that's why I've got the proud Springboks there, even though we lost to New Zealand last Saturday. But I think the way or the road that the Springboks took to where they are today had something to do with a thing that I like to call triple connect. And that's something that we can use in all of our teams, a triple connection. And the first thing when we talk about triple connection is connection to purpose. Every team needs to know what's their purpose. Purpose is about what are we here to achieve? What is our common goal? What is the outcome of our team? What is our common purpose? When we think about purpose, it's also about what is the processes that we need to take? What is the guidance that we need? What is the ways that we're going to work together to achieve that purpose? We need to work for something that's bigger than ourselves, that gives us that sense of community, that gives us that sense of belonging, that gives us something that this is worth working for, and this is the common purpose that we are striving for. The second connection that we need to make is, what is your role within that purpose? When we think about a team, every player, think about a rugby team, every player has got a certain role that he plays in the team. In the teams that you are leading, in the teams that's part of your business, every single person got a unique gift. They bring something unique to the team, and they've got a role to play within that purpose, in that team. And there's two things for me when we talk about the role that they play in the team. The first thing is discipline. And when we talk about discipline, it's not just have they ticked the boxes. It's actually, how are we holding each other accountable? How are we making sure that the way that we are working together is working for the team? Discipline is all about, what are the standards that we hold ourselves to? It's much more than just a tick list of, I've done this and this was my job, but it's actually, what are the standards that we hold ourselves to? And are we living out our values? Are we guided by values, or are we guided by our own self-interest? And that is what we talk about discipline. The third connection that we've got is, we need to connect to each other as human beings. I've got a strong affinity to create belonging in teams. What makes teams, what makes everyone in the team feel that they belong? Because in teams we need three things. We need safety, we need belonging, and we need vulnerability. That are three of the main things. If you go read a lot of the books that's focused on teaming, what did I say? Safety, connection, vulnerability. That is belonging, sorry. Safety, belonging, vulnerability. That's the three things that creates, how do we belong, how do we create that connection to each other. For me, there's one thing or there's two things that we need to think about when we think about connecting to each other. It is spirit. What is the spirit within our team? And that spirit is all about, it speaks about the quality of relationship. What is the quality of the relationship within our team? What's the trust levels within our team? And if we think about connection, it's what I said about creating vulnerability. Are we authentic? Do we share life with each other? Are we real with each other? People know exactly when there's no authenticity in a team. So when we think about teaming, I want you to think about, how do we connect to a purpose? How do we connect to our role within that purpose? And how do we connect to each other as human beings? There's one thing that I want you to remember about leadership. The big thing about this is that it's all about giving something about yourself. Being in a team and creating a team is not about keeping things for yourself, but it's about how much am I willing to share with my team. It's about being generous. It's about generous with my gifts, generous with my time, and generous with who I am. And as I said in the beginning, leading teams, creating teams is a deliberate effort. It's going to take intentionality, and it's going to take the deliberate effort of sharing, caring, and creating the environment for our teams to thrive. This is not a once-off thing. It's not a day that we spend together and we go on a team building. This is a constant thing that we need to do to help our teams thrive. And that's why I say building teams is not a 10-minute talk. It's a lifelong commitment to the teams that I want and to the teams that you want to create. I hope that means something to you. I hope you've taken something out of this. As I said, 10 minutes is a very short time to do this, and I've got a lot that I can talk about. I would love to connect you. Don't Google me, you're not going to find a lot of things. we're a group of friends that were at university together, and one of our friends is in J-Bay at the moment, and we had a Harcourt tour there when I was at university 22 years ago. And one of our friends said, thank goodness there were no social media then. So I'm very happy that you can't Google me then. But I would love to connect you if you want to talk about teaming, if you want to talk about connecting with your team and how to do that. Let's connect over LinkedIn. I had an Instagram handle there somewhere, but get my contact details from Lo, and it would be great to talk teaming with you once again. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, Lo. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Martin. It's a lifelong story building a team, discovering your role and purpose. So what came to mind when you were talking, we were fortunate enough to listen to Andrew Smith, one of the founders of Yuppie Chef, talk a little while back. And he drew a parallel that like resonates with me, and hopefully it does with you. And I'm trying to stick with this rugby theme, okay, because it seems to be a theme. Anyway, so he talks about building this rugby team when he founded Yuppie Chef, and as he grew it. And he said when he first started, he had to hire one person. That's all he could afford, right? So when you're building a rugby team and you've only got one person that you can bring onto your team, who do you bring, right? You can't bring a prop, you can't bring, a scrubby or a fly off or a fullback or a wing. And he said, look, he needs a versatile kind of player. So he got a flank. And then he had to recruit a second person, right, as his business grew. And again, he couldn't recruit a prop, he couldn't recruit a wing. So he got another flank. And so the story goes. I'm not going to tell it for as long as he did. I think he went to level 6 before we got the hang of it. But he basically tells about how he ends up with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 flanks, all right, in his team, and how that became the most ineffective team ultimately because they were all doing the same thing. So that's his journey, and resonated with me when you were speaking, and something that definitely is relevant. I've been thinking about how to introduce the next speaker for some time. And it only came to me in the break, if you'll believe it. Originally what I had in mind, Justin, was that I oftentimes get a phone call from you, and if it lasts for longer than 30 seconds, I know I've done something right. Okay, he speaks at 1.5 to 2 times speed to try and keep up. He is renowned as one of South Africa's e-commerce gurus. Okay, so Google him. But the story that I wanted to lead with was something he told me in the break, which is an important lesson for us. So his youngest son came to him today, I think it was, and said, "Dad, are we rich?" So we helped Justin sell his business. So he is rich. Okay? And so because he's a super authentic fellow, he said to his youngest Blake, "Yes, boy, we are rich. But you are getting nothing." So Justin, come up on stage. I think it's an awesome lesson. Yeah, wherever you'd like.
Thanks.
All right, I've got a couple of questions for you.
Thanks for that, Dustin.
No problem.
Not embarrassing. My son's 7, so I had to explain to him, listen, I said, I'm rich, you get nothing, guys. So when I give you pocket money, just try to decide if you're going to buy Pokemon cards, or if you're going to buy Roblox, or you're going to spend it on Minecraft coins or other things like that. So it's a lesson to learn, I hope.
Yeah, indeed, so right, let's try and stick with the theme, because otherwise we can talk for hours. Justin, your business is very well primed for this conversation for today's theme, but let's go with outsourcing. His business, by the way, I was reminded by someone in the break that we're not announcing enough what people's businesses are. All right, so apologies for that, my bad. Kunal is from Clearwater Capital. All right, they are awesome capital providers. Sorry for the interlude. Justin founded a business called Parcel Ninja. Before Parcel Ninja, he had a shopping list of businesses he founded, but we'll stick with Parcel Ninja that sold to Imperial. Justin, how do you know that you should be outsourcing something? Is there something that triggers? When is it in your business journey that you decide, let me outsource?
For me, it's probably Probably the 10th night that you can't sleep. You're sitting and you can't sleep. You're trying to work out how to solve some like complicated problems in your business. You're going, shit, I don't know what to do about a particular thing. We don't have the skills in-house, or we don't have the skills within our organization, and now we need to go and solve a problem that we're just not really equipped to do. And for me, what that looks like is trying to identify some component of the business that's maybe not core to what we do. It's maybe trying to find some expertise or some people that like can really add some value to your business that you don't normally have access to. It's potentially, I think, getting access to some people that you can't afford, really. So, I mean, a lot of the times when we outsource work, it's to individuals or people that are almost, it's called unemployable, for lack of a better word, or they run their own businesses, or they've got some unique skill or trait or opportunity or something that they do that has some magic that we don't have in our business, that we need to bring into our business, that we want to bring in and learn from, I think is another part of it. And something that we need to get done relatively quickly, I think, is the other part of it. So I think it's when we're in a phase of scaling and we're struggling or we're not too sure what is the type of individual personal role that we need fulfilled, and it's non-core to our business, we look to partners to sort of get the work done from us in an outsourced way. And for us, that's something that's worked really well to get to be flexible, I think, at the end of the day, something that's key. So an outsourced model for us is seen as a really great way to get world-class services from individuals or companies, to learn from it, and sort of to scale quickly through a process, and while trying to work out what the hell you're actually trying to do. So a lot of the time you think you need X, you outsource and you're like, shit, we didn't actually need X. Thank goodness I just outsourced for a bit. We actually need X times 2 or Y, which I think is important for us.
All right, well, so following on from that, what makes a good outsourced partner? How do you pick them?
Yeah, I think finding an outsourced partner is kind of like hiring someone almost. And someone asked me the other day, like, how do you find like phenomenal staff? And just talking to culture and a few other things. And my comment is that the best way to hire people is through referrals, we find. And the best individuals are referred by people that we deem like 18 players. And 18 people want to hang around other 18 people, generally do hang around 18 people, and have a sense of authenticity and have a sense of commitment and a certain sort of level and accountability, like was said earlier, the previous sort of discussion. And they refer people that are also bloody 18 players. And they don't want to play with any B team guys, so then they find A team. So when we're looking to outsource to a particular organization, the first thing we do is we go to network and say, guys, who has done X, Y, and Z? Who is phenomenal? Who did something that was different? Who kind of gets what we are and who we are? Because we're not like an old school corporate business. We need like a bit of flexibility. We need a bit of pizzazz, or je ne sais quoi, something a bit different from someone. And through the network, we almost always find the right outsourced partner.
Okay.
What an outsourced partner looks like a lot of the time, maybe I can talk to, is just someone that kind of gets us. Some people that we know like can actually tell us something we don't know about a business is a nice way to find something out, which is quite cool. Or they demonstrate the capabilities that they know more about something than we do, which is always amazing, which I love, because it's great to learn something new and have some guys tell you what you're doing wrong in your business, because I know we do a lot of stuff wrong all the time. So it's really great to find someone who can come in and say, you know what, your business, Justin, or this area of your business is so shit, we can improve it for you. I'm like, oh, yes, that's great. Let's go that route, you know? So I think that the referral process and finding the right kind of guys that just kind of get your business, can add value, flexible, and just kind of like speak to that are key things that we look at outsource, which is cool.
All right, cool. So bring it home for us. What's a story that's a good or a bad story?
A good or bad story?
Oh, you choose.
Oh, we do one each, eh?
Let's go.
Okay, so I'll tell a good story with outsourcing would be, so when we started the Superbulous business back in the day, so we started a fashion retail business called Superbulous, which we sold to Takealot. Key when we started that business was the inability for us to actually distribute goods. So what we were phenomenal at, we were these like amazing oaks that knew how to choose the right products, merchandise a hell of well, phenomenal at marketing, they could sell a hell of a lot of it. And then you come to the warehouse and there's be a shit fest. Nothing was happening. I still remember the one year I think we sold Christmas crackers, which had to be converted into New Year's crackers, because we couldn't ship them out, which had to be converted into like Valentine's Day crackers. Because you've got to get quite inventive with these things. So what we ended up doing there is we actually like partnered with the serverless team, built out a supply chain logistics business quickly, said to them, you guys stick to what you know, which is like sales, marketing, product selection, surprise and delight, all of that sort of good stuff. Stay out of our zone, we're going to do all the shipping and the shitty work you don't want to do. Let us pack boxes, ship stuff to people. And once that sort of mindset shift happened from the team there, and they just focused on what their core business actually was, and they didn't have to worry about the stuff that they actually didn't know what they were doing, and they left us to do our thing, then everything went nicely. So I think that's a great way of like segmenting roles, passing on to people you know, trusting the process, the team and the people, and kind of getting going. I think that's quite a cool story of something that did work. Something that didn't work was...
Unless it's benchmark or OCFO.
Oh, yeah, of course. No, we don't want to talk about that. Yeah, let's not talk about that, that's fine. No, all good. And a quick example of something that didn't work a lot of the time is when we didn't actually understand really what we're needing, what problem we were looking to solve. We didn't have the commitment to actually commit to like the resources to help the sort of outsourced partners. So a lot of time you have a problem, you throw it over the fence to the outsourced partners, they're like, oh, don't forget to sort the shit out, and we'll see you in a few weeks' time. And that doesn't work. And I think that we take for granted a lot of time that what the outsourced partners know about our business or how little they know. And we don't take the time to hold their hands, to give them the basics or fundamentals of our business. And we just think that they're there and they can magically solve shit for us, which they don't get right. And when it comes to complicated projects, you can't just, as I said, throw it over the wall and hand the problem over. You really need to hold people's hands. And that's something that we've done badly many times. And we'll probably do it badly again, because that's not something I'm good at. but we're reticent and we're aware of it, and it's something I think that's critical to the outsourced product. Like, let the other team succeed, or give them the tools to succeed. I think is something that's quite cool to do.
Thanks. Look, I think one final question for me that's come up as you were talking is we see all these businesses which are SaaS models, software as a service models in South Africa. They're effectively outsourced models. What makes these businesses successful?
Sure, that's tricky, huh? I think what's quite interesting nowadays, if I think back to like how much I outsource in my life, or just outsource in general, all of us do it. It's like everything from our like checkers 60/60 to our like accounting services, our HR, and I don't think there's anything that you can't outsource anymore, which is quite cool, from like domestic workers to like gig economy to all of those sort of things. So I think that the concept of outsourcing or fractionalized ownership or paying for a service and never actually owning something, I think is something that's starting to become a part of the zeitgeist or the way that people think nowadays, which I think is quite interesting. And I had this comment the other day to a friend of mine, like, you don't own much anymore, especially in the digital space. You don't own it you don't buy a computer game and have the disc in front of you or the CD or the thing. It all sits in this like cloudy place or something like that you don't really have access to. And so people, I think, are becoming accustomed to it. So just the general concept of an outsourced model, I think, is something that's becoming more and more relevant. I think that's important. I think the people that are solving those problems quite well are guys that are picking a very specialized sort of problem to solve, if I can call it that. It's something that's overly complicated and really simplifying it and making it like simplicity is the ultimate sort of sophistication, I think, is the sort of saying. So building complicated systems is bloody easy. Everyone can build a fucking complicated system. Building a simple system, now that's challenging. And I think that's something that we look for, and the guys that are getting that right in that model, or the guys that are taking these bloody complicated, difficult concepts and simplifying it into something that like laymen or people like myself who aren't really smart can understand. And it's everything from like accounting software, which like you talk accounting software and everyone's like, oh fuck, no one wants to touch that. I mean, that's like one of my cousins started Pastel. And I told them, I said, Xero is going to eat your lunch, watch, because I can almost understand Xero. And I think those are the sort of things, so like to take these like complicated problems and dumb it down to like really simplistic things, by being sophisticated, I think are the really interesting businesses in that sort of way. So like, having a guy coming to you accounting is cool, no one cares about that. What you want is like, give me the insights, don't give me the data. Show me something that I didn't know about my business. Tell me, give me something that I don't know. And that's what we kind of like look for whenever we outsource things or use some of these software as a service tools, which is cool.
Just an incredible answer. Yeah, you really did bring that home. Thank you. Put you on the spot a bit, and you got it right. We are out of time with that. You know, Justin's going to hang around, I hope.
Yeah.
You got a babysitter. For the balance of the evening, I would highly...
Outsourced.
Mic drop. I dropped my mic with my head on. But he will hang around. If you can grab 30 seconds of his time, I promise you it's worth 10 minutes about. That's how many words he'll say. Do it. It'll be worth your while, I promise you. Justin, thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, our next guest, Mr. Nas Dupree. There we go. He actually has a face. There we go. He actually has a face. Let's see his face.
Dastan, thank you for the opportunity and the invitation, and good evening to everybody. Yes, my journey started on the 25th of February 2006 when I became a franchisee of Oasis Water. They just started out franchising in Mpumalanga, Witbank, or Emraheni nowadays. And yeah, we saw the opportunity there to diverse our business way back when. And then I initially started as a franchisee, but immediately saw that this is an opportunity that we definitely want to pursue further and expand. And 6 months down the line, I became the franchisor. So we got a group of family and friends, and we bought out the handful of stores at the franchise that just started out. We were very brave way back then, a gearing of around about 95%, which is not advisable. But yeah, that necessitated that we had to grow at the rate of knots to be able to service all those debts and just to continue growing. But that was positive pressure for us. And the initial plan was to put up 100 stores within the first year. And lo and behold, we were able to do that, give 2 months spare. And then we had a solid foundation on which to further expand the business to all 9 provinces. But then when you're in the water industry, you realize that the opportunities is so wide and so deep that you can go, because every person drinks water every day. So we said we will focus on the SADC region. So we expanded into Namibia, Botswana, and now also in Swaziland. But then we came to a point where the opportunities are so vast that we didn't have the resources. We were able to grow the brand with refill outlets. That's the core of our business, is the refill offering in the water space. And we were able to grow, maintain the growth for about 25 stores average per year. We were able to do that all the years, but then that wasn't enough. The opportunities were still out there. And then we realized around about 2017, 18, that we needed extra resources, capital, expertise to take the brand even further. We believe it really has the legs to go to a next level. And then we approached Benchmark and said, yeah, we are very specific in the type of partners that we need. We know that there has to be a cultural fit. We need capital as a one part, but there must also be expertise coming with it. So literally the day before hard lockdown, we concluded the deal and signed the papers. And I must say we are fortunate in that we did make the right choice of partners. The one partner is Fletch Capital, and the other one is SLA Capital. And they were hands-on, not only writing the checks, but hands-on involved in advising, but also becoming directors, full-time involved in the business. And we were able to really up the notch and really expand further. Firstly, within the year of hard lockdown, we were seen as an essential service, which was fortunate for us. And we were able, despite all that, to still grow in that year. Also put up just under 30 stores in the 2021 financial year. But then when everything kicked in, we were able to ramp up that to 75 stores last year. And this year, the target is to increase that to around about 100 stores. Dustin, you're still there.
I am not. We're on a roll. And
Oh,
I was just letting you go.
sorry, the last part of the question, I forgot about that. I was in such a role.
No problem. I was asking for any cool stories that you might have. We've got a group of aspiring entrepreneurs, and they're all keen to learn how to scale, what goes wrong, what goes right, what goes wrong. Any stories you can give us on your journey?
I think the part that I mentioned, that culture is very important. So we were very specific in terms of that, and all the parties that we interviewed, there has to be that spark. The reality is you spend more time with your business than even your life partner or your family. That's unfortunately the reality in most entrepreneurs' life. And so that is, first of all, the old cliche that culture eats strategy for breakfast. That is true. So we were able to get that right. And I think if you get that right, it will definitely address a lot of the other issues. Your strategy, you know your business. I think the entrepreneur is the one that knows the business at heart. You must be open to the advice of the new capital, the new investors that come on board. But usually the gut feel of the entrepreneur is sound. That's what got you to the place you are. And that's very important to remember that. But the difficulty in the last 2 years is for us to, from a more or less a family-owned business, to do that conversion to become very corporate-like, that next level. So it's a tough and a difficult transition. Other things one has to get used to. Sometimes there's some control that you definitely do give up. So it's a give and take scenario. But the opportunities are out there, but times are tough. But fortune favors the brave. And what we experience now is that the opportunities in these difficult and very unprecedented times are even more than before that. But one has to box clever, roll the punches. That's the way of life. And it doesn't get easier.
Thanks, Mark. I think one last question. As we were talking, it just resonated with me. I think a lot of times on the journey, we certainly see it in our processes, in our clients' journey, the emotional roller coaster. You know, a lot of our clients are super excited as offers are starting to come in, only to realize that it's way there. Until the deal concludes. Can you talk to us about your journey from an emotional perspective, the ups and downs, and just following on from that, what it feels like now? You suggested you've found the right partnership. That is a great story, not always the case. But can you tell us a bit more about the emotional journey in terms of?
Yeah, it's definitely roller coaster is the right word to use. You have your ups and downs, absolutely, and that you have your ups and downs in a question of an hour or so. So the emotional journey, as I say, it's a continuous learning curve, especially now being with more corporate-like partners. It's a different ball game, the boardroom dynamics. So that's been something to get used to. We were very informal, all that. On the emotional side, it's your baby. In a sense, it's like your child probably going to varsity or so. You have to let go, in a sense, trust people. And that's sometimes difficult to do because you definitely can get it wrong. We are fortunate in the sense that we did get it right. But always be open to learn. There's new things to be learned every day, several times over. And then, broaden your horizons. It was difficult in these times to visit other countries, expand your horizons. But that is probably the one thing that I've learned in this, that you have to do, expand your horizons, be willing to learn.
Thank you very much. That is some super valuable advice. I hope you can hear the round of applause that is surely to follow. Thanks, Mark.
Recording stopped.
Wow. Jock, can I get you up here, lad? Wow, that was an incredible story. Thank you for that, Dustin. Guys, so execution is one of the more difficult parts of growing a company. How do you put the rhythms and the frameworks in place that make things work like clockwork? We've asked that to Jock, who's one of the co-founders at Outsource CFO and also the backbone of the execution of our organization, to just share a couple of ideas around like what makes things work in a way that you can scale. Jock, over to you.
Awesome, thanks Lo, and yeah, it's been amazing being here and hearing all the speakers. I think to keep with Dustin's rugby theme, something our Springbok coach recently said, it's not only about making the right decision, but making sure you execute well as well. And sometimes, and I think it's true for business, things doesn't fall flat at strategy, but at execution level. And that's kind of like where I'm heading with this spot today. So the focus, I mean, obviously executing to success is quite a wide topic. I'm going to focus in on meeting rhythms, the heartbeat of an organization. So as Outsource CFO, I'm one of the, like Lo mentioned, directors at Outsource CFO. We've leaned heavily also on learnings of others, scale-up methodology of Hearn Varnish and Traction, Gino Wickman, that really has some great processes that has been tried and tested over time and really works well. And I'll be going through some of that which we have applied at Outsource CFO and seen other businesses use as well. So I guess the question is, what does success look like? And like I think Uwais mentioned it earlier, is the BAG concept, that big, hairy, audacious goal, that larger than life thing that your venture sets out to accomplish. And that would be different for each business. So like our Carl earlier showed a mountain climb, and if we take the BAG and see it as a Mount Everest, the top point of summiting that mountain, breaking down your journey into sizable goals that you can reach over time, and over to 3 and 5 year goals, see that as your base camps that you would do in reaching that goal, and then breaking that down even further to your next quarter, your next goal. And if we look at that, you start at your BAG, you go down to your 3-year goal, 1 year, quarter, and then it triples down to your weekly and then daily focus areas and priorities. And that's where meeting rhythms then fit in. As an organization or a team is growing, communication becomes all the more important to keep everyone on the same page, to know of all the variables that's continually happening in a business, and to get those inputs to have everyone on the same page. So how to go about that? One way is establishing good meeting rhythms and just trusting the process in that sense. It can feel very mechanical in the beginning, getting that in place, but over time, as it gets traction, it starts paying off the dividends. So the 4 types that I would be talking about basically is your annual planning meeting. I think for most of you, you would know about that. That's where you set out your strategy, decide on your goals for the year. Then you have your quarterly type of off-site meeting where you break down your annual goals into bite-sized quarterly priorities, and then from there, taking that to weekly focus areas, basically splitting up your quarter into those 12 weeks, and then from there taking that even down to daily focus areas. Because the concept basically is, if you stay on track for your daily targets, you'll stay on track for your weekly targets, you'll stay on track for your quarterly targets, and so forth. So, like I said, your annual meeting, or where your team comes together, that's just to determine the strategic direction for that year and the priorities. Just to lay that out, normally that's a 1 or 2 day get together where we just lay out everything again and just go through all of that. The quarterly offsite or quarterly meeting, Again, very similar to your annual one, but just in many cases refreshing again what has been discussed, is the core priorities for the year, and then just assessing whether that still applies. And like I said, breaking those priorities up in more bite-sized actionables for your team. And in your quarterly breakaway, some tools that work well is what we call the stop, start, keep. With your head of departments or head of divisions or team leaders, look at what should the teams keep doing, start doing, and stop doing. Just getting information in again and looking at what's working and what's not. And from there is to work out what we call a 90-day plan. And with a 90-day plan, it's not to get a wish list of what does the team, what do we want to get done in the next 90 days, but what needs to get done. And focusing on 3 to 5 what we call rocks or priorities for that quarter per team or division. And then we get to what I want you to almost remember tonight, is the weekly and daily huddles. With a weekly meeting, and with maybe any meeting, the most important aspects of it is the agenda, that it starts and ends at the same time, and to have it at the same day each week, or if it's your daily meeting at the same time, and to keep to the agenda. And like I said earlier, the concept is if you stay on track for every week, you'll stay on track for your quarter. So again, trust the process. And then just looking at practically, how does the agenda for such a weekly meeting with your team leaders look? Basically broken down, how we approach it is starting with good news. Share the good things that has happened in the last week, business or personal. And then moving to a reporting phase where we report on the numbers, the priorities, and the people, and breaking that down even further. In numbers, what we call the scorecard, your KPIs, 10 to 15 items, looking at leading and lagging indicators, but more to leading indicators. So that's what is your revenue gonna be this month, not looking at last month's revenue as a lagging indicator, so that your team can grow to be more proactive in that way. ROC reviews, your priorities. Are we on track with our priorities that was set in the beginning of the quarter? And then headlines, people, so your customers and your clients. Just for everyone to give one-liners. What happened? Client X signed this week. Client Y accepted a new proposal, team member X did this great work on client Y, and so forth. And to, again, that reporting part is just to gather information for your team. It's not to discuss it yet at that stage. Then we get to the to-do list part, and that's where, through the reporting process earlier, everyone would have kept their notes, and when we get to the to-do list part, first, we review the last week's to-dos, so to that concept of accountability. And the idea is not to have to-do lists from weeks gone past, but only to focus on getting each week to do the next week's, to review what was on the to-do list last week and make sure it gets done. And like I said, not to list things that's not going to get done just because it feels nice to list it. From there, we move into the important part of a meeting, is the IDS session. Identify, discuss, and solve. So with the IDS session, if you do that, we spend about half an hour on that. If you do that each week, you're going to solve basically 50 problems to 100 problems a year, which, again, if you add it up, is quite impressive. And then concluding the meeting is just to review what did we set is to do for next week. We rate the meeting, and next week we meet again. And then just in closing, the daily huddle is then just with the next level of your team or compartment of your team, is then just to check in on the weekly meetings goals for one, and each team member just quickly shares what are they focusing on today, are there any stucks, and from there they can then escalate that or take it offline. And in that way, the whole team connects every day and every week on the most core priorities. And again, cascading from your daily meetings back to your weekly meetings to your quarterly meetings. If you keep it on track, it provides a platform to reach those goals. Thanks everyone, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jock. Awesome to see that, that structure. Love it, love it. I think everyone's got a couple of notes here. Andrew, where are you? Here we go. Okay, guys. There's a number here that caught my eye tonight. It says 75 million plus users globally. I think
80 million.
80 million. No. 80 million. That's my new number. I think that's something a lot of people in the room aspire to. Andrew represents one of the bigger organizations here tonight. They're also our core sponsor. We've asked them to come speak to us about a little bit about scalable infrastructure as part of a scalable organization. Andrew, over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just got to check which button I'm pushing on here. Okay, that's the one. Right, good evening, everybody. As I said, I'm from Zoho. I'm the regional manager for Africa for Zoho Global and the executive director for Zoho South Africa. So this evening, I get to speak about building scalable cloud technology solutions for growing companies. And like some of the other speakers here this evening, they've spoken about the same things that I want to speak now. So people is important, your culture is important, your procedures, your systems, and I'm going to take it from the technology side. So scalable is get ready for rapid growth. And what you need to do is you need to research and forecast where you want to be with your technology. Technology and digital transformation is an ongoing journey. You never really reach the end of it. And you need to forecast and research as to who is going to use your technology, be it your staff and also your customers, how the technology is going to impact them. And I'll take you through it in the later slides. All right, so the users, who will be using and what do they want? So let's just understand the next generation, which is the Generation Z over there. These are the people that you're going to be employing, and these are the people that are going to use your internal systems. And so as a company that wants to scale, you need to know that the tech systems you're putting in place are tech systems that your future staff are going to want to use and get excited to use. Let's look, what does Gen Z expect? They want mobile first. They want quick access on the go, so you need to think mobile. Just one example I can tell you is there's a huge company in South Africa, I won't name which one it is. Their staff get reimbursed for expenses throughout their workday, and they're still using Excel to submit and having to attach receipts to an email, send it to their manager. The manager then has to take the Excel, the receipts, and send it on further for approval. Whereas they've just implemented Zoho Expense, where the staff just scan the receipt and submit the report, and it gets approved and it gets reimbursed all in one go. So always need to think mobile first. Secondly, we've got their workplace flexibility. So you need to think cloud. People want to be able to log on from anywhere in the world. They want to be able to connect into and collaborate with other staff. And I've actually seen that now with outsourced CFO. Some of their staff are in Bali at the moment. So it's really cool to see how these guys can work remotely, and I'm sure they love it. And then the other one is efficiency. So tools to save them time. And think about asynchronous tools. Asynchronous is tools like voice notes, or being able to take I call it a writer document, and to be able to comment on a word processing document and to collaborate without being in real time with someone. Whereas your synchronous is real time meetings, so that staff can address different things at different times. It makes them more productive. Next is, sorry, hold on 2 seconds. I see this is actually one of the older slides. Can you refresh the presentation? Just refresh the browser. No, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll just keep going. Yeah, you can just refresh it. Perfect, thank you. You'll see I did this presentation on Zoho Show, so it can just be refreshed and the latest version is now there.
That on purpose.
You'll see you don't get the color issue there on efficiency. All right, so the other thing is meaningful work. They want the tools to be able to offer a great customer experience, and that's part of your employee experience. You want your staff to have the tools that allow them to deliver really good service. It makes them feel really good, and then it overflows to your customer's experience. And then also visual content, and especially video. That's what Generation Z love. So if you are building an LMS, LMS, Learning Management System, visual content and videos are really important. Okay, so let's just look at some of the technology solution examples. I like to not stand up here and talk, to actually show real life examples of what companies are doing. So moving from spreadsheets to a CRM system, and a CRM system that has mobile accessibility. Another move for digitization would be to move from paper forms to digital forms. Written signatures to digital signatures. Online forms that get filled out and then get sent for digital signature. Obviously, we know about contact us forms on websites. That's a standard. But what Gen Z want is they want contact us forms plus a live chat. They want quick access, and also the staff want to be able to access the customers on the go anytime. Then you can also put in contact us form plus a live chat and a chatbot. Then email inboxes to support desk applications, where you can manage all the incoming queries, be it coming in from an email, coming in from your social media, coming in from a WhatsApp. You can plug all these different channels into a support desk and you can manage all that communication. I was with the City of Johannesburg yesterday and they manage, I think, 50 different departments and something like 500,000 followers all through a support desk. Moving from just having bank details on your invoicing to have payment gateways and QR codes for people to pay. Moving from paper sign-in forms to QR codes. Excel reports to live dashboards. I can also say there's a lot of huge companies out there that are still reporting on Excel. All right, what do you need to scale? A lot of people say, obviously, systems and procedures, but what do those look like? So important elements, a system would be your technology or the digitization. Your procedures would be the mapped out business processes within the technology. Then also you need to really look at cost optimization. A lot of companies have actually, that we have advised and consulted with, have gotten to a point where they've actually chosen technology and eventually gotten to the point where it's actually too expensive to use that technology for their business. So you have to be very careful when you do choose a type of technology that you understand, again, it's forecasting where you're going to be in the next 2 to 5 years and how expensive is it going to be to maintain the type of technology that you choose. And then LMS, a learning management system. Again, a lot of companies don't have it and it is so important for scaling. When you want to onboard new staff or if you want change management and you want to change something in the company, it's very difficult to now then go and pair people up and get people to be trained. If you have an online LMS, you can run the new staff member through a course of videos and they'll know exactly how they need to use the technology and you can scale the business a lot faster. And then a digital growth plan, prioritize and make small changes. We had SARS yesterday as well at the same event and they were talking about how they planned over 12 years to actually implement small incremental changes to get where they are now. And I think if people have seen what SARS was like 12 years ago, they've really come a long way. So yeah, their advice was just small incremental changes as you go with your digital transformation journey. All right, so coming with systems, it's really important to use a technology that you can customize, right? Every business is unique. You know, all businesses will have a unique selling point, and if you don't, you need one. You know, you want to be able to compete with your competitors, you need to have a unique selling point. And so if you use a technology provider that is set for a certain industry, and it's very fixed, maybe accounting is something different, but let's say, for instance, like a CRM, and you want to build a very unique part to your business, you need to be able to customize that CRM for a unique part of your business. So it's important to look at that. Also, look for technology that's easy to customize. So you can even have a staff member that can go in and customize the solution, and you don't have to phone an IT person and pay them to come in and do changes. So look for low-code, no-code applications, and then applications that integrate easily. You can use things like Zapier or Zoho Flow to have apps talk to each other, but you really want a connected ecosystem of technology so that the information is easily connected throughout the whole tech stack so that your staff can access information easily. And this is what you want to stay away from, is this integration spaghetti. You don't want to be building these custom integrations that have to be constantly maintained, and if something breaks, you've got to pay someone to fix it. You really want to look for a really connected ecosystem. And this is just a visual representation of what that easy drag and drop visual looks like, where you can easily drag and drop and you say, if this happens in this app, I want this to happen in another app. You don't have to get someone to go and do an API integration and code it. Then let's get to procedures. Your business processes. You want to automate your business processes with the use of blueprints. You want internal knowledge bases with articles, and you want workflow automation. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So this is the old school kind of process flow poster that you would put up so people could understand how the process would work. And on the right here is a CRM blueprint where it actually prompts the staff member to take each step and fill in the information that is required. Here's just something, this is just a view of what you can do within the blueprint. Is you can make things certain mandatory things, like you can make a mandatory tag, you can force them to attach a file, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like in a live demonstration. All right, so this is a live example of a business that's functioning, and I like to show it because I don't like standing up here and telling people, you know, this is how you can do stuff. I'm going to show you what it does. Right, so this is in Zoho CRM, and you can see there that they've got the birthday of the customer there. They've also got a life status to make sure that if this person does pass away, they're not going to be emailing them happy birthday. Okay? Automatically, it's also taking their age. Then there's other information here about the customer, is who's the agent that's assigned to the customer, and would you like to send an automated birthday email? Then would you like a reminder to call the person on their birthday, and would you like an annual call reminder on that date every year to remind you to speak to that customer? Then you'll have other information. There's a KIT reminder on the top left there. That means a keep in touch reminder. And how frequently do you want to keep in touch with your customer? And when do those reminders need to start? That's the start date. So every 3 months on that date, it's going to remind you to reach out to the customer and build loyalty. We've got other information there, like what their interests are. If you run golf days or running events, you can invite them to it. So you've got all the data in your system. And then at the bottom there's also a valuation reminder to remind you to reach out to the customer. All right, and this is the automation that triggered for the happy birthday email. So it went in there, it put in the person's first name, hi Mary, happiest of birthdays to you, wishing you a very blessed year ahead. Have an awesome day, and then it slots in the staff member's email signature. And you can see that goes off every year, and it reminds the person, you'll see in pink there, PS, of exactly what you do business-wise. These are the replies every day. And these are real people that reply every day to say, thank you so much for the email, thank you for thinking of us. And it's as if that staff member typed it that email that morning. And yeah, you'll see here the answers. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. And sometimes it's thank you, oh, by the way, we're actually interested in making use of your products and services. And here's some of the other reminders. Remember those keep in touch reminders, and all those reminders are popping up and telling staff what they need to do. So you'll see there's a tenant application has been accepted. We've got a keep in touch reminder there for Jonathan. We've also got a congratulations, the deal's gone final. And you can build all these automations into your tech system. So when you're scaling and you want to go rapidly, you really want to help your staff. You want to help your staff to not have to think every time they have to do something. It should all be built into the tech system. There again, some alerts. Rental payment reminder has been sent out to a customer. Yeah, a lot of incredible things you can do with automation. Okay, I've got 2 minutes, I'm going to be quick. Here's the blueprint, a real life view of what the blueprint looks like. All right, so this is a tenant application, and this is building the lease agreement. What the blueprint does is says step 1 to the staff member. They click on step 1, it says who's the landlord. They put in all the information. Step 2, who's the tenant. They put in all the information. Step 3, the landlord's bank account details. They put it in there. Step 4, all the variables that you would have in a lease agreement are there. What's the annual escalation? Is furniture included? Is water included? Step 5, it's going to say complete the checklist. Okay, and to finish step 5, it says you have to attach the lease agreement. Okay, so now the staff member they click out of it and they do mail merge. It's going to merge all that data into a template in Zoho Writer or Word. We integrate with Microsoft. And when they do that, it's going to put all the data into the contract like that. Really easy for the staff member. And then you can even send it for digital signature with Zoho Sign. And then they go and they have it signed, they upload it back into the system, and then they complete their blueprint. And everything's stuck there, the checklist is there, the attachment of the lease. Right, lastly, I've only got 2 more slides. The LMS, also important. Have those videos, have those those knowledge-based articles there for the staff to be able to read up and know exactly what they must do for certain procedures. And then lastly, have a digital growth plan. Set those targets of where you want to be with your technology and have these small incremental improvements and implement the technology as you go. Great, thank you so much.
Andrew, thank you so much. Wow, is anybody else spinning? Where is Wilhelm still here? There's the man. So Wilhelm's our COO and also head of technology at OCFO. And a couple of years ago, this man did a research project on the best CRM and ERP systems out there, and went through 22 or more different options around the world. And he came up with Zoho, and we compared that to a lot of different things, and it ultimately ended up going with the product. We've implemented Zoho across the organization, and we love it so much, and it works so well that we've been implementing it for clients ever since as well. And so it's become a great partner. So just Andrew and your team who's all here today, thank you very much for being a part of the Scale Conference, and such sleek software you guys are building for every part of scaling up. Absolutely love it. Thanks. Give this man a clap, guys. My co-host.
Gil.
We're wrapping up.
Indeed.
Great. Just want to say, so every company we work with, they're going through this process of scaling up. And a company does 1 or 2 things at the end. It either dies or it sells. So if you are not going to be a founder who lets your company ultimately die, you're going to be a founder who's having your company sold. And it's part of this lofty journey of creating a scalable organization that these guys are the end part of that journey. Like that happened to some of the speakers tonight, where the company gets packaged, they reach out to lots and lots of different potential buyers and ultimately find a perfect partner for you to sell the organization. So yeah, all of our guys who are at that point where they say, hello team, we want to sell the company. These are the experts we come to. Thanks for co-hosting with us tonight, and we hope to see you lots of clients who want to go through that journey.
Thanks, Lo. Never before in a sales pitch have I ever said to a client, you will die or something. I don't know, maybe it'll work. That's not my sales pitch here. Let's try it. Maybe I can do the rest of it.
Let me see it go 1 or 2 ways.
Wow. So just to echo that, and to give a shout out to Lo as well, one of the primary issues we have when we are transacting a business is financial information that goes alongside this. You're going to get CEOs looking at your business, they're going to be really excited about it, they're going to see the vision, they're going to see where it fits into their organization and their future. And in come their accountants, okay, and boy do they rip deals apart. Okay, so it is critical for you to get your financials right ahead of going to a market, and as such we have asked OCFO to assist us in that regard, but not only in selling your business, also in understanding it yourself. All right, so we've seen some product that they've pushed through to our client base, and they really do help you understand your business better than you think you do. So a bit of a shout out to you as well. And that basically does wrap it up. We don't want to talk for too long tonight. We just want to thank some people.
Every one of our speakers, everyone who has been on the stage tonight, can we please just get you in the front for a quick thank you?
Unless you've left.
Unless.
Like Simon. No wine or her. That's quite cool. Can we get one?
Yes, you
There you go. Thanks, Phil. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
That is it. From my perspective, Lowe's, everything else on the agenda.
No, that's it. Another just thank you to the partners, thank you to all of you guys for being here tonight, for making your weeknight on this cold, wintry, rainy day available to learn about scaling up from all of these founders who are doing some cool things. And last thank you to Zoe for sponsoring our evening. Thank you guys.
Indeed. We'll be hanging around.